In the heart of West Africa, a quiet revolution is underway. His name is Captain Ibrahim Traoré, and though many outside Africa may not know him, the forces that shape the world know him all too well.
When Ibrahim Traoré stepped up to lead Burkina Faso, it wasn't like flipping a switch. It was more like walking into a storm barefoot. Every step he took, there were people trying to trip him up.
In a move that has left the world in shock and sent ripples through international financial circles, Captain Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso has stunned the US by paying off a jaw-dropping $5 billion of national debt, an act that has caught global attention for all the right and controversial reasons. But there's more. The deal was made in conjunction with a highly unexpected and controversial policy: deportations. The maneuver is one of the most audacious economic shifts in modern history, leading many to wonder, what's behind this stunning move, and how could it change the global financial landscape? The surprise didn't just stop at international observers. Even former US President Donald Trump was left speechless, a rare moment in the world of global politics. In today's video, we'll explore the shocking chain of events that led to Burkina Faso's game-changing debt payoff, the diplomatic complexities of deportations, and the potential fallout from this bold, Trump-style financial shakeup.
In the heart of West Africa, a quiet revolution is underway. His name is Captain Ibrahim Traoré, and though many outside Africa may not know him, the forces that shape the world know him all too well. Since taking power in Burkina Faso in 2022, he has survived 29 alleged assassination attempts. But why?
A bold new leader steps onto the global stage. In an era where developing nations grapple with suffocating debt, beholden to the whims of foreign lenders and the austerity measures of the IMF, one African leader has shaken the table. Captain Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso, a 36-year-old military officer turned head of state, has stunned the world with a move few thought possible: erasing the country's $5 billion national debt completely. The announcement came mere months after Traoré launched sweeping changes, including the deportation of foreign entities viewed as exploitative and an aggressive push for economic sovereignty. His government overhauled contracts, reclaimed state resources, and mobilized local industry. Many assumed it was posturing. But then came the bombshell. The debt was gone. The timing was uncanny. As global powers like the United States grow wary of China and Russia expanding their influence across Africa, Burkina Faso's sudden self-liberation caused a geopolitical stir. How had a small, landlocked nation, often overlooked in the grand chessboard of global politics, pulled off what seemed impossible? Supporters called it a masterstroke of leadership, patriotic, visionary, and unapologetically African. Critics, however, raised alarms over the country's increasing militarization and Traoré's iron-fisted control. But regardless of the critiques, one fact was indisputable: Burkina Faso was debt-free. And for many African citizens, this wasn't just an economic victory, it was symbolic, a reclamation of dignity, of self-determination. Captain Traoré is now being hailed by some as a liberator, a man who defied global norms and put his country first, regardless of the cost. Whether history will judge him as a revolutionary or a strong man remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: the world is no longer ignoring Burkina Faso.
At the same time, he was trying to bring peace to a country constantly under attack by armed groups. But the real danger, it wasn't always the ones with guns. Some of the people trying to bring him down didn't carry weapons. They wore suits, smiled in meetings, and blended in with the crowd. These were the undercover players, spies and insiders working with powerful countries that didn't want Traoré's vision to succeed. Now here's where things get smart. Instead of chasing ghosts, Traoré decided to follow the trail that doesn't lie.
Cleaning house. The controversial deportation campaign. Captain Traoré's move to deport thousands of foreign nationals raised eyebrows worldwide. Critics were quick to label it xenophobic, a human rights disaster in the making. But Traoré, speaking to national media, framed it as a strategic reset of national sovereignty. Many of the deportees were foreign workers, primarily from former colonial power France and other Western-affiliated countries, who held high-ranking positions in Burkina Faso's mining sector and financial institutions. Traoré alleged that these individuals were exploiting the country's resources and funneling wealth out of the country at the expense of local development. "We cannot build a new Burkina with the hands that looted the old one," he declared in a fiery speech that reverberated across the continent. His government swiftly replaced these expatriates with Burkinabe professionals, trained through a government-funded skills initiative. Mining companies were nationalized, contracts with multinational corporations were either canceled or renegotiated, and a wave of legal audits followed. The purge was thorough, the message was clear: Burkina Faso for Burkinabe first. The economic earthquake, $5 billion in debt, gone. In a move that sent shockwaves through the international financial community, Burkina Faso stunned the world by announcing it had completely cleared its $5 billion external debt, years ahead of schedule. The revelation came during a surprise press conference, where the country's finance minister stood beside President Ibrahim Traoré to declare what few thought possible: economic liberation. Western analysts were initially skeptical, questioning the math and speculating hidden bailouts. But as the details unfolded, the truth was even more shocking. The financial miracle had been engineered through a three-pronged strategy: reclaiming national mining profits, cracking down on illicit border trade, and redirecting foreign aid away from bloated NGOs and into state-led infrastructure and development projects. Gold, once a symbol of exploitation, had become a pillar of sovereignty. Under Traoré's leadership, Burkina Faso renegotiated mining contracts, ensuring the country received its fair share. Border controls were tightened to curb smuggling and tax evasion, capturing billions in lost revenue. And instead of relying on external actors to build roads and schools, the government took charge, cutting waste, employing locals, and building with national pride. Perhaps the most defiant stroke came when the International Monetary Fund offered support amid growing food insecurity. Traoré refused. "It's not just about clearing debt," he said. "It's about standing tall without a hand in someone else's pocket." The message was clear. Burkina Faso was charting its own course. No longer tethered to a cycle of debt and dependency, the nation is emerging as a symbol of what's possible when leadership aligns with sovereignty and self-respect. While challenges remain, one thing is certain: Africa and the world are now watching a new kind of revolution unfold. Trump's unexpected reaction. When news broke that Burkina Faso had not only paid off $5 billion in debt, but also initiated a sweeping deportation campaign, global political figures took notice. But perhaps the most surprising reaction came from former US President Donald J. Trump. Known for his nationalist rhetoric and hardline stance on immigration, Trump was reportedly stunned by Captain Ibrahim Traoré's bold economic and border measures. During a rally in Georgia, Trump invoked Traoré's name with a tone of admiration. "You see what's going on in Africa? This young captain in Burkina Faso, he kicked everybody out and paid off $5 billion in debt. Can you believe that? $5 billion! And he did it fast. We should have people like that running our economy." The crowd roared with approval, some cheering with genuine excitement, others in amused disbelief. Trump's comments reflected a rare moment in American political discourse: the open praise of an African military leader by conservative and nationalist circles. Typically, narratives surrounding Africa in these arenas lean toward the chaotic or pitiful. Yet here was Traoré, a man whose unapologetic decisions and lightning-fast results had flipped the tables entirely. To many on the American right, he symbolized a return to bold, decisive leadership. Global observers were quick to note the irony. A West African leader had not only captured the attention of the Western political elite, but had done so by executing the very kind of policies often advocated by them: strong borders, national control of resources, and economic sovereignty. For once, it wasn't Europe or America leading the charge. It was Burkina Faso setting the tone, leaving even a figure as polarizing as Trump momentarily impressed, and perhaps a little envious.
Something big is happening in Burkina Faso, and it's not just talk. Under the leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the country is flipping the script and doing something many thought impossible: building its own military tools without waiting on help from the outside world. Their Prime Minister, Jean-Emmanuel Ouedraogo, recently shared some news that's turning heads around the globe. Burkina Faso is starting its very first homegrown defence industry. That means they're getting ready to make and fix their own weapons, right there on their own soil. This isn't just a cool idea, it's already happening. And honestly, it's happening way faster than anyone expected.
Africa's revolutionary poster boy. Across the African continent, Ibrahim Traoré has become more than just Burkina Faso's transitional president. He's become a symbol of defiance and possibility. When he took power in a coup, few expected him to reshape the political conversation beyond his own borders. But today, Traoré's actions have ignited a firestorm of admiration, especially among Africa's youth. Social media platforms buzzed with hashtags like #AfricaRise and #Captain Traoré Effect, signaling a new wave of Pan-African consciousness. In neighboring countries like Mali, Guinea, and Niger, also under military leadership, Traoré's perceived successes were celebrated as validation for the path they had chosen. The anti-Western rhetoric, once considered fringe, is now finding a new audience. To many, Traoré represents not just a leader, but a movement. His firm stance against foreign interference and his bold economic decisions, including the push to nationalize key natural resources, struck a powerful chord. The concept of economic liberation through resource control is not new. However, Traoré has given it fresh urgency and results. His administration's ability to pay off national debt quickly stunned many and gave his message real weight. It wasn't just rhetoric, it was action backed by measurable outcomes. For many young Africans disillusioned by decades of corruption, dependency, and external manipulation, Traoré is more than a president. He's a revolutionary with a plan, an embodiment of what can happen when a leader prioritizes sovereignty and self-determination. He wears military fatigues, but wields data and policy as his weapons. Whether Traoré's model is sustainable remains to be seen. Yet, for now, he's become a lightning rod of inspiration, proof in the eyes of many that an African nation can stand tall without bowing to foreign powers. In the minds of a rising generation, Captain Traoré is not just a soldier, he's a symbol of a continent in transformation. Pushback from the West.
I think the most fundamental challenge is not white supremacy, it's black inferiority and the abiding appetite amongst the black elite to function on the basis of white embrace. Number one. If we ourselves, even our thieves, are not patriotic, when they steal from Africa, they invest in Europe, they don't believe. The minister said, fix our own government, get a governance system. The people in charge of governance systems steal and invest elsewhere as an indictment or an affirmation of their own incompetence and incapacity.
Not everyone welcomed Burkina Faso's bold pivot under Traoré's leadership. Western governments, notably France and the United States, expressed unease over the country's new direction. The sweeping deportations triggered several diplomatic rifts. French mining giants, once deeply embedded in the Sahel's economy, claimed they were expelled without due process or compensation, further souring relations. In Washington, the U.S. State Department issued a carefully worded statement, urging the Burkinabe government to uphold democratic principles and protect human rights, particularly in relation to those targeted by the deportation orders. However, Traoré appeared unbothered by the backlash. He responded with a pointed declaration: "They call it democracy when we kneel. They call it tyranny when we stand." The remark reverberated far beyond Africa. While officials in Paris and Washington condemned it as populist rhetoric, others, especially Western citizens weary of globalist politics, found it refreshingly honest. For them, the issue transcended race or nationalism. It centered on sovereignty and the right of a nation to chart its own course. In that sense, Traoré's defiance symbolized something larger: a global pushback against perceived foreign meddling and a renewed appetite for self-determination, even at the risk of international friction.
What would happen if an African nation decided to process its own gold instead of shipping it overseas? And what if a country with rich agricultural land started manufacturing what it consumes instead of importing from overseas? In the heart of West Africa, a 35-year-old leader is launching projects that challenge decades of economic independence. While the world was looking elsewhere, Captain Ibrahim Traoré had been silently building factories, reviving airlines, and even planning nuclear power.
The real secret? Resource nationalism. Beneath the headlines and political drama, one truth emerged. Burkina Faso is rich in gold. For years, foreign companies controlled the country's gold mines, exporting the wealth while leaving behind little in local profits. But under President Traoré's leadership, that changed dramatically. His administration passed bold legislation that nationalized key mining operations. The military managed the transition, and soon, state-run mines began generating record-breaking profits. This shift wasn't just about ownership, it was about control. The government cracked down on illegal gold smuggling, raised export taxes, and eliminated middlemen. Instead of routing sales through offshore traders, Burkina Faso began selling gold directly to countries like China and the UAE. This direct approach unlocked massive revenue streams previously lost in international pipelines. Insiders point to this surge in gold income as the key factor behind the government's surprising $5 billion debt payment. It wasn't a miracle, it was strategic economics. By asserting resource nationalism and keeping profits within its borders, Burkina Faso turned its natural wealth into a tool for national growth. In a region often tied to dependency, the country offered a new model: raw, unapologetic self-reliance, driven by what lay beneath its own soil. The military as economists? A new model emerges. Critics argue that military regimes cannot sustain long-term economic growth. But in Burkina Faso, the military did something rare. They stopped acting like soldiers and started acting like technocrats. Key government departments were staffed with young, educated officers, many trained abroad in France, China, or Russia. These leaders focused on practical development, targeting infrastructure, agriculture, and energy reform. They ditched luxury cars for utility trucks and rejected offshore bank accounts. Instead, they championed local empowerment by establishing microfinance hubs to support rural farmers. Their approach signaled a shift from personal gain to national progress, redefining public service as a mission grounded in purpose, not privilege. It was as if the military traded bullets for blueprints. Many African policy thinkers now see Burkina Faso as a case study for a new governance model, one that blends military discipline with civic responsibility, all rooted in national pride.
This brother right here is looking more and more handsome by the day. Okay. Shout out to Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré. These are the results of their first gold production. This is their first few hundred kilograms of gold that they have produced since Ibrahim Traoré came into power and took over his mining sectors and started controlling his resources, and has kicked several European mining companies out of the country that have not been benefiting the country. He is truly leading by example and is a rebirth of Thomas Sankara, who was all about utilizing the wealth of the land to benefit the people and the economy, and not, accepting imperialists.
The bigger question: is this sustainable? While Traoré's success is undeniable, the bigger question looms: can this model last? Paying off debt is an incredible achievement, but it's also just a first step. Maintaining independence without new loans, ensuring transparency in nationalized industries, and preserving civil liberties in a militarized state. These are challenges that can't be overlooked. Already, murmurs of dissent are growing. Journalists have faced restrictions, and opposition leaders claim they are being silenced. International watchdogs warn that economic victories should not be used to justify authoritarianism. Still, many Burkinabe citizens seem willing to give Traoré time. After decades of being dictated to by colonizers, corporations, or the IMF, they're finally seeing their country move forward on its own terms. A global paradigm shift? Captain Ibrahim Traoré's moves may seem like a local phenomenon, but the ripples are being felt across continents. In Latin America, in Southeast Asia, in the Caribbean, leaders and grassroots movements alike are studying Burkina Faso's playbook. Could resource nationalism be the new wave? Could kicking out foreign interests, when done strategically, truly empower the people? Even in the United States, a country where politics is deeply polarized, there's a strange unity in the fascination with Traoré. Conservatives see echoes of Trumpian border control and economic sovereignty. Progressives see a rebellion against corporate greed and neo-colonialism. He's become, in a sense, a Rorschach test. People see in him what they want to see. But the facts remain. A country once buried under debt, overlooked and dismissed, just stood up, cleaned house, and told the world, we owe no one. And that, in a world addicted to debt and dependency, is perhaps the most revolutionary act of all. Captain Ibrahim Traoré's decision to pay off $5 billion in national debt, coupled with his controversial deportation policy, has certainly made a statement that will echo through the halls of international diplomacy for years to come. This unprecedented move raises critical questions about the future of debt management, global relations, and the power one leader can wield to reshape their nation's economic trajectory. But with such bold actions, what will the long-term repercussions be? Will this inspire other nations to take similar unconventional paths, or will it serve as a cautionary tale? We want to hear your thoughts. Do you think this was a masterstroke of diplomacy, or a risky gamble with too much on the line? Drop your opinions in the comments, and if you found this jaw-dropping move as fascinating as we did, hit that like button and subscribe for more insights into the world of global politics and economic shifts. Until next time, keep an eye on the headlines, because with leaders like Traoré, anything can happen.